go over what the different energy efficient items are, such as solar heating systems, including solar systems for heating water for domestic use, solar heating and cooling systems, caulking and weather stripping, furnace efficiency modifications, which they do have some limitations to that, clock thermostats, new or additional ceiling, attic wall, and floor insulation. Huge part, water heater. That's like the most common thing we use, water heater and water heater insulation. Heat pumps, vapor barriers, any Energy Star item except like an appliance. You can't do a refrigerator or a stove or anything like that. That's an energy efficient item. But if it's, I'm sorry, if it's Energy Star. But this is really huge with the water heater, because a lot of times, whether you're listing a property or you're buying a property, that water heater can be an issue, right? It's really old, or it doesn't even work at all, and now you're worried because the client's doing an FHA loan and they can only, whatever the case might be. How are they gonna get this water heater taken care of? They can do an energy efficient mortgage. They can borrow the money to get that, the buyer can borrow the money to get a brand new water heater and throw it on top of their mortgage without an issue. So it doesn't matter that it's taking their loan amount higher, it is allowed. So that's just what a lot of people don't know about. And energy efficient mortgages can also be used on refinances. I know there's a couple agents when we did this presentation last time that use this as a tool to reach out to their previous clients. Hey, how are you doing? How's everything going with the house? And if they came across issues with water heaters or energy efficient items, they mentioned that they can refinance and add those items into the new loan.
The Energy Star, does that include windows?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Windows is another actually popular item. Okay, so like we said, energy efficient items such as refrigerators, dishwashers, they cannot be included in the program. Now these energy efficient improvements can be combined with FHA and VA financing on all types of products, including the FHA and VA streamlines, which are the refinances I mentioned, with or without an appraisal if they do a refinance. They can also do it on the 203K product. So if you're doing the streamline, is really interesting because the 203K streamline is the FHA purchase product where your buyer is doing a renovation loan. And the streamline is a much easier renovation loan than the full 203K. So not to get too off the topic here, but the reason why that's important is because on the 203K streamline, you're only allowed up to $34,000 in improvements. Once you go over that, you're looking at a full. But if some of those items are energy efficient, then you're not necessarily going over that amount. The client can just borrow that additional into the energy efficient mortgage. Now these improvements are not allowed on conventional loans, so that's very important to know. And what this also doesn't mention is it's not allowed on the VHDA first time home buyer product either. So FHA and VA only. Okay, the amount that the borrower can finance is determined by 5% of the appraised value or 115% of the median area price, which can be Googled. And honestly, I've never incurred a situation where it's ever gone over that anyway, so don't hang up too much on this. When in doubt, we're here, so just ask. Obtain a contractor's bid for the energy efficient items. A HERS report will be required. A HERS report is pretty much any FHA or VA appraisers likely going to have the ability to give a HERS report. And that's where they just check the energy efficiency of that item. They want to make sure that the amount of money that the client is spending on that item is going to be recouped in this energy savings that they're getting from putting that item in the home. And as long as it's an Energy Star item, it's a top-notch product, that's going to happen. Again, I've never experienced where a HERS report came back and they weren't able to do the mortgage. The HERS report will determine if the work that is to be done will be cost effective. A worksheet will be completed by the HERS inspector to determine the maximum amount the borrower can finance. At closing, the funds are escrowed and must be done within 15 to 30 days. So it is something that we're gonna get an invoice. Like the last one I did just recently, the client went to Lowe's, he got like the invoice, if you will, information, printout information on the product he was getting, on the water heater he was getting. And then he had a separate friend that was actually a contractor that was going to install it for him. So he sent us a $100 invoice from his friend for the installation. And that's what we used to escrow into the loan. He borrowed it, we hold on to the funds, we followed up after the loan closing to make sure it was done, and then we released the funds to the client. Once all the items are complete, the funds will be dispersed to the borrower and the contractor. Weatherization items through FHA can be done without the HERS report, which helps a little bit. The maximum amount on FHA is $2,000 without having to even look into it, but up to $3,500 with the appraised value that's going to be subject to, as if it was already, the item was already in the home. And that value, of course, would have to support the improvements, which it always does. Over $3,500, you need the appraisal and the compliance inspector, which is the HERS inspector. A copy of the bid from the contractor must be in our file. Funds are escrowed, items must be done, same deal there. A final inspection fee will be collected at closing for the final inspection from the appraiser. So we already kind of know that that's coming. We'll make sure we collect that extra $100 or whatever the appraiser's gonna collect. We already take care of that at closing. Examples of weatherization items: storm windows and doors, including thermal windows and doors, thermostats, weather stripping coffee. So really think of it as anything that's going to help keep the bad weather out. One of the most common questions I get is, what about a new roof? Unfortunately, a roof is not allowed. Okay, we just talked about FHA. So for VA financing, they're eligible up to $3,000 of the loan amount without any separate calculations. A copy of the bid from the contractor must be in the file. Funds are dispersed to the contractor at closing of the VA. For values from $3,000 to $6,000, we must have that Energy Star sticker on the new windows or doors to determine the cost savings the borrower will have. Because with VA, they do it a little bit differently than a worksheet, which is what FHA does. With VA, the underwriter actually looks at this Energy Star sticker, which has the percentage that they will save in energy, and she does the calculations herself. That's why the Energy Star is so important. The underwriter will make the determination as to if the cost savings are acceptable to VA guidelines. Underwriter goes on the website to see the savings. The savings have to be more than what it's cost and amortized up over the 30 years, which, like I said, I really hope that it is, if they're doing an energy efficient item. Because of the large amount, if they do that higher dollar amount, we will need the bid and the funds will be escrowed. The repairs must be done within 15 to 30 days, and a final inspection will be collected at closing once again. So very similar. And this is what we would guide you through anyways during the process. If there's anything that we need from you, we're gonna come and ask for it. So you don't have to wonder, what am I supposed to be doing? Release of escrow funds once the work's complete. Submit a final inspection and all the invoices to the closer for release of the escrow funds. Invoices should be itemized, showing the work completed and the cost. Clearly reference the subject property and include the contractor's address, phone number, and tax ID number. We had that issue with that client who had a friend. He wanted to get the $100 for the installation and the loan, but they didn't want to supply us anything. I said, no, we need a contractor's invoice specifically stating it's going to be installed in order to collect for that, which he would then was able to supply us. So energy efficient mortgages is a great tool, again, for not only for your buyers, but when you're listing a property that you know just does not have good windows. You know, it's something that you can mention when you have those possible offers, or even mention in your listing, energy efficient mortgages available, or something just to help get more calls in or whatever. You know? However that would help. So is there any questions on energy efficient mortgage and how that may benefit you guys?
So they they can get a loan for $250,000. They're approved for $250,000, and then if they want new windows on the house, let's say they cost $30,000, they're automatically going to be approved for that 30.
No, and a $30,000 is going to be a very large amount.
Right.
$30,000.
are expensive, so.
Yeah, well, and I've never done an energy efficient mortgage where they borrow $30,000
Okay.
for windows.
Well,
Typically,
let's say 10,000.
typically it's, these 3 windows are bad.
Just
And those
certain
3
ones.
windows need to be replaced, and it's gonna cost, $800.
Not the
or-
full house.
Not the full house, because it's very unlikely they're gonna be able to calculate enough energy efficiency over that 30 years for the cost of $30,000. It's probably something that underwriter's not gonna
Okay,
calculate.
alright.
So it's gotta be within, a reasonable amount, so that they can calculate and show without a doubt that
See.
energy efficient, not just get new windows because they don't want the old ones, kind of
Okay,
thing.
okay.
Good question though. So, let's just say, a client, a VA loan, VA buyer is buying a loan for a home for 200,000, and most cases, the VA is borrowing 100%, right? So they're borrowing 200,000, but they have $4,000 in energy, in a water heater that they're getting. They're gonna be able to borrow 204.
Okay,
okay?
without rechecking credit or
Without
anything.
having to
Finance.
redo,
Right,
if
I mean-
they were very close up. Now, it's under our discretion in a sense. Let's say you have a client who's got a 597 score.
Borderline,
They're
right?
on 49% ratio.
Right.
Mm.
They're approved through the automated system, but when their ratio goes up, that turns into a refer, and they don't have rental history. It just could be
Okay.
to underwriter's discretion, but in most cases, it's not
Okay.
gonna be an issue. Any other questions?